You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the Heroes Never Die in Overwatch League Network Swapcast. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight we're going to be taking a look at the most recent news around Overwatch, its competitive scene, and we'll look ahead to the Overwatch League's second week of online play as we venture into week number 9 of the 2020 season. So before we get into the news and introduce you to my co-host tonight, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who has joined us tonight on Twitch for our live show. And of course, I have to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So as you guys can tell, we got a full crew tonight from the network shows. And, we're, around the Heroes Never Die time right now, because it is Wednesday. A little bit after when we normally start, but, some tech issues and I had to eat all that good stuff. But first, I might as well introduce my HND co-host because this is our time slot. So Ed, a lot of stuff still going on. A little bit of shenanery on the side. We've got some projects in the works for Hearthstone. We got a lot of stuff happening. But how's the past week been treating you, my friend?
Pure chaos. No, it's been good. I've been working from home. Hit Twitch affiliate, so there's that. So
Woo!
check that one
now
off.
Now you can get this face.
Or you can get this face
Nah.
as your emote. Yeah. So yeah, it's been fun playing a lot of Apex, Hearthstone, all the new stuff with Hearthstone. Was able to get what I needed out of the Overwatch event. Mm-hmm. I got all the skins to get the 9 wins, and then I couldn't get a legendary to save my life, so I had to buy some of the new ones, and yeah, but overall been pretty good, I'll let you introduce these other schmucks, though.
Well, those other schmucks just so happen to be my co-hosts on Overwatch League Network. Up first, we have Anura. Anura, I know you've been busy, kind of trying to keep busy. How's the new jobs been going?
All right, so the long story short is I have 2 jobs on the side that are not happening yet because of COVID, and I got a third job to deal with not having those 2 jobs that are on the side because of COVID. So my third job I started yesterday. I just did the trainings for it. It's just like a grocery store that needs some extra people because of how many people are going to a grocery store. So it's been pretty good. I just did training all day, but I have to get up early in the morning tomorrow. So so far so good.
Yeah, the first day is always just pure computer work.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely a lot of grocery stores getting impacted pretty heavily on that front. I know we had they were looking for people to break down a grocery load when it came in, and they were asking literally every single department in the store to go help them. But hopefully people will stop panic buying and just even things out a little bit more on that front. But last but not least, we do have Booger. Always good to have you back.
Yeah, it's this is my first week of complete stay-at-home, no work, nothing. So it's a little bit weird. I started streaming. I'm trying to do that every weekday now. It's actually last night I got to play a ton of Overwatch was talking about earlier, and it was an absolute blast. I looked at the bands that we had and I thought, oh, that might not be the best time to play, but it's a lot of fun playing a lot of video games going for these past 4 or 5 days, and probably the next quite a few days going forward. A lot of video games in the future. So stoked to take a break from playing games to talk about them for a little while right now. Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good week in game, and actually finally broke 6K in Hearthstone Battlegrounds for the first time.
Nice.
And it didn't happen until I absolutely shit-talked Celestalon on Twitter because of the hand he dealt me, when I was, on the edge of hitting 6K, and then he gave me 4 of the absolute worst heroes in the game to choose from. And I'm like, this is a setup. But luckily, after that, I got Illidan, who I've been doing fairly well with out of the limited games that I've gotten him. and I hit 6K there, and then I haven't looked back at this point, so I'm nearing 6,200 at this point, and hopefully I'll continue that climb and just widen that skill rating gap between Edinar and I. But it's not as bad as the gap between, say, Jay from Bob's Taverncast, because I was watching his stream last night and he was dipping below 4K and he just kept losing time and time again. And I was like, man, maybe you do need coaching. But we'll have more on Hearthstone Battlegrounds tomorrow when we record Tavern Tales. Let's see what's going on in regards to Overwatch. So today is Wednesday, it's April 1st, it's April Fool's Day, and of course, there are a lot of people petitioning for April Fool's Day to get canceled due to all the COVID-19 stuff going on. But Blizzard has typically always kind of just taken part in this, and Overwatch is no exception to that. So this year what they did is they basically gave all of the characters within the game googly eyes. So even things that normally don't have eyes actually have them on them. Like, I know Bastion has them unless he's in his sentry mode or in his tank ultimate. Torbjorn Turret also has googly eyes, as well as Hanzo's ultimate of Dragon Strike, which I thought was pretty interesting. And, obviously, this is an interesting distraction. I wouldn't say it's, nightmare-inducing or anything like that, but it was definitely light-hearted fun in this case, and I haven't really had a chance to check out what they've been doing in the other titles, or if they have even done anything on that front. But, they're keeping that tradition alive, and this is a company that's always kind of been at the forefront of that. And I know even some of the Overwatch League teams were kind of jumping on board with this as well. I know, the Spark were, doing, an anime opening. Of course, you had a bunch of, fake roster sign-ins that, people are trying to bait others into, which are very obvious because people never look at the actual handles of said teams. But all in all, I have to say, this was an interesting turn of events, knowing that, things that normally don't have eyes all of a sudden have them. It was just very conflicting to me.
I thought it was hilarious. I was laughing at the googly eyes all night last night. I really caught me off guard when the dragon coming through a wall and it had the googly eyes on it. That was one of the best ones. One thing I noticed though is Briggs' cat does not have googly eyes. That's the only thing I found that didn't have them added character wise. So yeah, I think that it was a pretty cool April Fool's event.
Meh. Meh. I mean, I miss the days of and Totem, you can appreciate this. Remember when WoW used to come out with full-on fake patch notes?
Mm-hmm.
April Fools, not only did they do stuff in game, they spent the time to write up 2 pages worth of fake patch notes. This, they just put googly eyes on 3 abilities. Or ability, all right, let's step up your game.
Well, it was more than just abilities, because they had them on every hero.
Yeah.
And it worked in the highlight intros, too. So, it was universal.
No. Yeah, still pass. Yeah, it's, it's cool, but there are some better ones out there, in games. All right, I'll say this for instance, since I also do an Apex podcast. Apex took the worst gun in the, how there's always that one just crap ability or crap gun or crap anything?
Yeah,
they turned the worst gun into the best gun in the game for today. And they made it everywhere. So everyone had the golden Mozambique.
I know what
and it was awesome.
That one.
And that's what their April Fool joke was. And
is it a one-shot kill though?
No, it's not a
Well,
one-shot
then
kill.
it can't be golden. What the hell are they doing over there?
They have like 6 golden guns in that game. That just means all the attachments are gold.
He's missing the point.
Yes, I know it's a Bond golden eye. No golden gun from golden eye, but you're missing the point, Totem.
No, they're missing the point. See, if you were to say legendary, then I could understand, but don't call that a golden gun just because the color is it. It's legendary.
You mean besides the fact that it's golden?
Well, do they actually call it golden guns?
No, it's just gold. So, whatever.
But, luckily, we have some other distractions for us, including stuff on the PTRs. We got our first look at some of the new Echo skins. So they added 10 skins altogether for the new hero, 2 of which are epic. 4 are legendary. Well, technically, I should just say 2, because there's variations of 2 different skins to give you 4 legendary skins. So looking at the epic skins, we have a new carbon fiber skin for Echo. Really nothing out of the ordinary here. A lot of other heroes in the game actually have like that black on gold color scheme to them. Just to name a few, like Orisa, Farah, Brigitte. There's at least like 6 or 7 different heroes in the game that have that carbon fiber look to them. The other one is the Hot Rod skin, which gives Echo a bright red armor shell as well as yellow gloves. And then the 2 legendary skins that we got are Stealth Base as well as, there's a Moth and Butterfly skin. So I have to say, like, I was looking at these and I was like, these couldn't be, like, complete polar opposites in regards to, like, actual design. I saw the Stealth Bomber look and I was like, okay, that's pretty badass. And then, I see, like, Mothra, and I was like, whoa, hold on. Like, we don't have any other Destroy All Monsters going on right now outside of, if you want to count Winston. So, like, that was kind of off-putting for me. But, what were your thoughts on the new looks that we got here?
I love them. The Hot Rod skin is, like, the cleanest. Is it legendary? Or is it,
that is one
the
of the
epic skin?
skins.
Epic. I love that skin. I love the red on it. And then like just the moth skin, I'm a Gladiators fan, so purple really like brings out a lot. Not moth, it was the butterfly one that's purple. I really enjoy that one. I think these are really clean for skins, and you can do a lot with this character, and they're really showing it off with these. The fact that they went from stealth to like a butterfly is really cool. Booger, what about you? What'd you think about him?
Oh, that carbon fiber one is straight up Houston Outlaw colors, so I like that one. That one's really cool.
Part of that is because all of the robots use the black and green colors.
Yeah.
For the carbon fiber
True.
specifically.
But it makes me like it. And then the stealth ones, they remind me of Gundams. Mm-hmm. And that's very cool. I think that the like flying robot fighters, it's just essential cool sci-fi. So like they really did that one cool. And then the twist with the little moth and butterfly, making them like the polar opposite, like you said, it's really cool. It's a good variety of skins. One thing I looked at with Echo, I wanted to see what her golden guns would be like, because I was like, oh, it's another hero that's just gonna have golden hands. But that's not the case. Her whole arms are golden, like from the elbow down. So you're not gonna spend all your competitive points for fingernails to get a gold weapon. You get the whole arm with it, so it's definitely a good value there.
I forgot to mention one of her like basic skins that you can get has like a golden hue to it, and it looks like just a better version of her. I don't remember what it's called, but literally it just makes the black parts into like a golden part. And I'm saying that with like the gold gun would look clean. I cannot wait to get it. It's one of those things that's like once you put those 2 together, I really think it's gonna like all come together.
Don't say gold gun around Toto. He gets triggered.
Ha 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 ha.
No, these were some good skins. I enjoyed them. The legendary ones are pretty good. They kind of had a track record of recent heroes having pretty lame ass legendary skins. Like Sigma's
are
horrible. just horrible. So it's good to see them have good skins come out, and they've been on a track with this because this last event had some of the best skins I've seen for any event in the game's history. So they did well. I didn't have a chance to take a look at the emotes and stuff like that, so I'll have to take a look at those and see how things look there.
Yeah, it does seem like Echo will at least be on the PTR for a little while at this point in time, so you still have time to go check out all the new cosmetics and also test out the new hero on the PTR. Now, in other news, taking a look at what's going on in regards to the competitive scene, actually quite a bit has happened here within the last week. Looking at the Uprising Academy, they've actually gone out and signed South Korean hitscan DPS player I'm37. And this is his second run-through of the Path to Pro system after he basically speed-ran it before signing it with the Toronto Defiant in April of 2019. Now, during that speed run, he basically went from starting in the OB division to getting signed and starting in the Overwatch League in a matter of 21 days. But this is a team in Uprising Academy who have honestly just been on this downward spiral throughout the entirety of the year, with losses in the Mayhem Winter Classic. Their placements in regards to Contenders North America, both in the seeding tournament as well as Contenders Trials Week 1 and 2, have not been good. They have not finished above that 9th through 12th place finish at this given point in time. And it's just, they just keep losing out, and, hopefully they'll be able to find a little bit of stability, but just based off of what the NA landscape is, especially when you factor in just how few academy teams are left at this point, I don't really have high expectations right now for this team. But, most recently we saw I'm37 actually competed in Contenders China with Light Gaming, but Booger, this is someone who has Overwatch League experience. We know that Uprising is an organization that likes to trade off players. Do you feel like we're going to see a similar situation where I'm37 is going to be able to kind of speed run things, and is this a potential promotion that we could see, knowing how much fanfare has really gotten driven behind someone like Jerry here?
I don't know. I kind of think it might be a chance for him to work his way into the league in a more traditional speed, where he came so fast last season from Open Division right into Overwatch League. He didn't really have very much time in that academy contender scene, and this might be a chance for him to really earn his way back to the league. I don't know if it'll be quite as fast, because he was, he came in mid-season last year and then wasn't on it at the beginning of this season. So I wouldn't think him to be someone that people would say is washed. He just really, I guess, joined a team late that decided to restructure. So maybe he'll get a chance to work with an organization that's for a little bit more. He is so fresh coming into the Overwatch League. I think it just kind of gives him that chance to have a more traditional pace of becoming a pro. He might end up in the league again, but I wouldn't expect it to be next week or the week after. He'll probably spend some time on Uprising Academy, and it sounds like they definitely need the help. So maybe he can give them a little bit of a boost into the contender scene. He'll give them a little boost and earn his way back into a team. But I really don't know what team I would think that would want to pick him up right now. There's not a whole lot of teams that I look at and I'm like, man, I'm37 will really round this off. So I don't know. Do y'all have any speculation on what kind of team you think would be able to use him well?
I do.
Who?
The Boston Uprising.
That's a good point.
I actually don't know.
Okay, Boston Uprising without Jerry.
There you go. That's better. If they sell off Jerry, then I can definitely.
Which they're going to do, because they got Jerry crazy cheap. Because it's Boston, it was just cheap.
Yeah, for sure.
So you sell off him, and then you just bring I'm37 up. And I think I'm 37 guy kind of got the raw end of the deal. Like he got promoted too quick, and there was too much fanfare around him for him to truly succeed.
Well, that was also at a time when 3-3 was the meta, and he was playing all sorts of different things, so he didn't really get to have a chance to actually play what his specialty was in at the time either.
Mm-hmm. And then when it got to stage 4 or whatever, when they got rid of goats 3-3, I think the Toronto Defiant had some inkling that the team was going to be blown up. So they probably didn't care all that much. So yeah, I think it's good for him, but I think he'll be up on the Boston Uprising sooner rather than later once they trade off Jerry.
It's if they trade off Jerry, I think Boston's going to try to keep Jerry. It's one thing they can actually get sales off of.
What has proven to you in the past that Boston will actually
Fusions is the one,
but Fusions isn't good.
Exactly.
So if
and
you
yet
can't
he's
get
still
rid of
on
him, because no
they
one
tried trading him.
Exactly.
They tried trading him to Valiant, and that didn't work out for them.
Yeah, Jerry could find a team.
I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't even see this as a pickup for Uprising. I can see them trying to sell him straight off to another team before he moves up with Boston Uprising. That's just me personally, and I don't see it happening this year. I see it happening probably off season of the next season.
I wonder how feasible it is for teams to even trade players around right now, because it would require them to be traveling to the areas that the teams are playing from based on their ping. You know how they have the East Coast, West Coast, and so I don't even really know if a team wanted to set up a trade, if that would even be able to take place at the moment, because they would need to get them into the same area. So like maybe we could see trades between teams that are already in the same divisions, but like, is it even feasible to think about, like, say Boston trading a player to one of the West Coast teams or one of the Asian teams? Like, I don't know if that's possible for them right now. So that it definitely could be something to kind of put a hiccup in I'm 37's fast track back into the league, is if a team wants to get him and he just can't get there right now. But hopefully that won't be the case for too long.
And if he was competing in Contenders China, I wonder where he was located at the time, or if he was just, playing on absolutely absurd ping.
Or he couldn't travel.
Yeah, one of the two. It could be
Maybe
any combination of things there.
Yeah. No, I think maybe he couldn't travel, and so he probably had to get dropped or something, and then so he went over to ask. Maybe Uprising had some tryouts or something, something like that. I think IM37's been in NA for a while now, and is just trying to find a place to go.
Well, not too many Academy teams left at this point, so who knows when we'll light the next candle in that regard. But we do have an update on the Overwatch League when it comes to the homestand events, and the league, the hits keep on coming this season due to the ongoing pandemic that we're dealing with, and the league has actually canceled the remainder of the regular season homestand events. And they are hoping to return to live events for the season playoffs. But for now, the shift is completely online at this point. And, there's been a lot of restructuring going on. The reason why we didn't podcast Monday night for Overwatch League Network was because we were still waiting on the current week schedule to drop. And we basically got week 9 and week 10, and then we're waiting for additional updates. It's kind of been like an ongoing thing as they try to restructure around teams essentially relocating to Korea in some regards, or teams outright just not being able to play in their training facility like the New York Excelsior, which that's kind of a can of worms too. Like, it's like, obviously New York City right now is the epicenter of the outbreak in the United States, and for them to not have a backup plan is so mind-boggling to me. I don't know what to think of the Excelsior right now for kind of like a misstep in that regard. But like I don't want to put the entire blame on them, but just like really guys, come on. But hopefully at some point in the season we will get to see more homestead events, but it's better to just outright cancel them for the foreseeable future than just waiting and seeing what happens on a week-to-week basis. Like we know the outlook hasn't looked great, and maybe towards the end of the regular season there will be far less broadcast hiccups with the online side of things. But who knows at this point? If it means we get additional weeks of cat lottery, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think that canceling the homestands definitely was the move to make, especially when it comes to reorganizing the schedule. Because right now, I feel like they're having some major issues getting the schedule together and to try to make things like somewhat even. And if you're looking forward, they can't really organize the schedule that they're having if they're going to keep canceling homestands further up. So by canceling all the homestands doesn't tie them to that model of like keeping the games and having to organize which teams go where. So like we would, this whole issues our pandemic's not going to end in like the snap of a fingers. So it's going to be like a slower end. So I'm thinking that maybe towards the end of the season, they might be able to have some of the teams, even if it's not safe to be doing homestands, they might be able to take some of the West Coast teams, send them to the East Coast and trade them off for a week or two. So that, because right now we're getting a lot of duplicate matches are going to be happening. And that's, with what we got, it's better than having no Overwatch League. So it's great. But later in the season, if things starts to ease up a little bit, and they might be able to have a way to just like send a couple teams to a different division, and by canceling the homestands, this like kind of frees up their abilities to work with the schedule like that. Like I think that having the homestand still on point, like canceling them now through the end of the season, maybe they could have refunded a few deposits, probably not, but it definitely doesn't keep them married to that schedule that they were going to have when things got when everything gets ironed out and they go off of online play. So this definitely, I kind of expected this to be coming. It just doesn't seem like we're gonna be able to get right back to normal super quick. So hopefully that this is just an indication that they're going to be working with the schedule in a way to make it more even for some of the teams that missed early games, as well as to compensate for some of the duplicate matches that have been happening. So it's a sad thing to be happening, but it's necessary. It's what's going on.
I think beyond that, with the way we're doing it now, which is what you're saying, there's a lot of teams playing each other over and over again. I don't know how legit a playoffs like last season would be, because some teams are playing teams like, I know the Shock just lost twice. Spoiler alert for people who don't know, they lost twice. But like you have to play Shock 3 or 4 to 5 times in like a season is mind-boggling compared to some people who have to play Boston Uprising 3 to 4 to 5 times. It's one of those things where you got to hope they do something else. I hope they do something like a seeding tournament or something like that. Something different. The season already has an asterisk on its name of being like, this is a season where everything went wrong. This is going to be asterisk in every sport event ever, every esport event ever. It's different. It's a different thing. I want something different for the playoffs to make sure each team has at least a chance to show that they are better than what people thought. It sucks that they're canceling homestands, and I hope one day that like we get to see a full season of homestand. But right now, it's not the season. We can't predict the future. This is what happens. I'm hoping one day we can finally see some cool stuff from the teams that I know they're hyped to have homestands, but this season we're gonna have to deal with the same matchups and the same teams playing each other. And we just have to go with it.
Yeah, I think I'm just reiterate all the same sentiments that you guys said. That it sucks. We knew this was coming. has to be done. The one thing I will add is, as sad as it sounds, I don't know. I'm not saying I don't know how the Overwatch League can overcome this, but this could be a very big, not nail in the coffin, but pretty damn close. Because like they have like no viewership on you.
I want to say they were like around 40K. Like the viewership numbers on the VODs have actually been pretty good, but if we're talking live viewership, yes, that's true. Like we continue to see a dip on that front.
And the thing is a lot of the money that was going to the teams was based on homestands and profiting off of that. So like a lot of the advertising probably went to the actual Overwatch League and not the teams, because they were going to be getting a lot of that. So I don't know. It's not good for the format of the Overwatch League, obviously. So we'll see how things can kind of go from there. But yeah, it needed to be done, obviously, and I think they will change around the playoff format for sure.
Yeah, like with the playoff format, it's almost like at a point where I think they could just go March Madness style and have a committee of experts just seed the teams and have all the teams in. Just have everybody in. That way everyone gets somewhat of a chance. We all
can't do that with this ping though.
Oh, you're right.
Well, I mean, this is based off if postseason can actually like bring everyone together, and it's like long enough time between COVID to where we can actually come together for an actual playoffs, because we don't know what's going to happen in like 20 weeks from now. So hopefully by then we have at least an answer of like, is he going to be fully online or not? But right now, hopefully this thing doesn't last 20 weeks in the future. So that's where I'm at. That's why I'm hoping that the postseason will not be online, or if online, people can actually travel to a location, even if they can't have any viewers, they can have like at least something for it. That's where I'm at, but that's what I want for playoffs. But if it's all online, it's going to be weird for sure.
You would think with all of this lost revenue that these next few weeks would be an ideal time to kind of get something together for the YouTube drops or the All Access Pass, so they could try to bring more money into the league. But you know, it's been pretty radio silent in that regard, so we don't know what the status of drops are going to be in that case. Obviously, to get some of the stuff, you're basically just having to shell out money in order to buy Overwatch League tokens, and there's no other way to currently earn them. So maybe that's a potential way to make up some of it, but there's really only so much that you can really do to try to bring in money outside of just, say, merchandise sales. And, you know, even then, like, that's going to pale in comparison to what you would have brought in for, you know, ticket sales, stuff at the vendors, all of that stuff just combined. But, you know, it's really hard to say just, like, what the outlook is going to be. I feel like there are going to be people out there that will definitely see the season as, like, a huge misstep just due to maybe some outside circumstances. But, you know, not all of the blame is just going to be put on one side of the fence here. But who knows? I'm hopeful. Hopefully, we'll still get playoffs in a LAN environment as well as a grand finals. And if that's the case, I can only imagine how quickly those tickets are going to sell whenever they do go on sale, should that actually be the case. Now, looking at what else is going on in the league, guys, we actually had some interesting things in regards to production changes, more so with the way that they picked hero bands. And I have to say, like, I saw this, I didn't watch it live. And, like, I showed this to my manager, and he got a good kick out of it, but I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. A lot of people seem to like it. But basically what happened was we had Zoe's cat Nori basically pawn at hero cards. That's basically how they selected who was going to get banned for the upcoming weekend worth of matches. And much to the delightment of everyone, or, at least 95% of the world here, May was one of the banned heroes. So this weekend's bans for DPS are May and McCree. Booger, I know you're going to be upset about this, but your Wrecking Ball, who saw actually a good amount of play this past weekend, also banned, as well as Brigitte. And then that just got me thinking, like, is Nori, like, the chonky cat rival, or she just outright bans Brigitte, so we don't have to see the other cat? Like, what are you guys thinking on that?
I think that I'm total like I love watching ball play, but I'm totally okay with giving it up for a week to get rid of May. It's about time. That's like been the target. I feel like May was the target of hero pools, and they haven't been able to hit the broadside of a barn with that target. So finally, no May for a week. But the thing is, I thought no May would bring in an influx of ball play. So I guess it's definitely looking like we're going to see a lot of dive this week. And I think that the dive that we're seeing in current Overwatch League is so different from that traditional dive because of all the new characters that have been introduced that it's just absolutely excellent. Like, you can see the dive with the Tracer Genji, you can see the dive with the Sombra and the Doomfist. Like, I would think we're definitely going to have some very entertaining matches just from the hero pools this week.
Mm-hmm.
I think the McCree being banned might lead to quite a bit of Widowmaker play. But yeah, I'm very thankful to finally have May banned. But I guess it's we got to lose Wrecking Ball to get rid of the May. It's okay for this week. But yeah, the cat choosing them, it's at first I was like, that's what they're doing because they left the bingo tumbler thing somewhere else. And when they moved the camera around, you could see the tumbler thing over in the corner. So it's not like they didn't have it. It just, I guess they thought the cat was funnier. The president and commissioners and stuff were at their house. They couldn't stop them from doing it. So I guess that was the chance to have a cat make the choices for the Overwatch League. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how random the Tumblr thing could be. So a cat Tumblr doesn't really make much of a difference.
Yeah, we're actually pulling cats out of the Tumblr.
Oh, that would be whole. They wrote the character names on cats. That would be mean. That's some Tiger King stuff going on right there. We do not want that in Overwatch League.
I mean, you're the one who called it a cat Tumblr. I don't know what you meant by that.
I mean, like, the difference between a cat choosing and the Tumblr choosing, it's whatever, no big deal. At least May is banned.
I think it was genius. I think this was genius. I could care less if they use a Tumblr, if they use a random number generator or whatever. They got Nori trending on Twitter. I think it was like with 19.7 100 people just tweeting about Nori, which is the cat, and just talking about what happened. I think it's one of those things where it's like, at least make it interesting. The Tumblr was cool. Hero bands can be super boring where there's like, here's the hero bands, but they're really trying to make it entertaining. And I'm actually really enjoying it. It's getting people talking about the Overwatch League. It's cool. It's something to do when you're at homestands. It shows that people are like, we're doing this from home. It gives you that home feel, which Overwatch League is supposed to be professionally like produced, but like right now they can't do it. So might as well give them this. It reminded me of like season 1 Overwatch League, where they did a whole bunch of weird skits and like weird stuff, or like 2019 when they brought out the goats. It's something that like it's what I love about the pre and post shows. It's bring more weird stuff like that, because it's not any different from a random number generator than a cat just like going around and swatting at a card or going over a card. It's just making it more entertaining for me.
Before I talk about the cat, did they, like, because I did not watch it live, did they weight it
Yes.
like they said they were going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So they had like because I saw only like 6 for each. So 6 choices for like DPS, and they had to
I
choose
think it
2 of
was
them. I don't know how you
more.
can weight it, but regardless, nothing screams don't ever take me serious as an organization like having a cat choose who the competitive players can play. You can't take it serious. Like whether if there's something as, and I don't know if this is an actual thing with the Overwatch League player contracts, if there's a performance-based system, like, if you get a bonus for playing a certain amount of matches, stuff like that. I assume there's something like that in a lot of clauses. But if you're just like, okay, I'm not going to hit my bonus this week after a cat chose the main characters I play. Now, I know those could have been picked by anything, but the simple fact that, let's say you were only playing because May was out there, and I'm sure there are players out there, they're not playing this week because a cat picked the character that they play can't be played. Like, I mean,
I disagree with this. Honestly, they could do it any way. It could have been anything that got your hero banned. If you don't like the fact that your hero got banned, then don't like hero bans. Don't like that the cat picked it. Personally,
it is the least professional way of doing it.
I think it was fun. And right now everyone's at home doing nothing. So I'd rather have something that's like less professional and actually going out than nothing, That's just me personally. Professionalism's gone out of the way as soon as everyone's working from home. Me personally, I believe that. So there's might as well have some fun with it. That's me personally, but yeah.
It's definitely not the most professional way to do it, but it's also like we are in completely strange times. Like, this is not normal scenarios. So I think that it's okay to sacrifice a little bit of that for some entertainment. But I definitely see where you're coming from, because those players that get their main hero banned, say some mains out there, if they're really mad, now you cannot direct your hate at a cute little cat like that, like you could someone on the talent staff. While I don't advocate for that, you can. It's totally easier to be more mad at them. I don't know. I just definitely think that everything is so weird right now that it's okay. It passes. While it might not seem like the most professional thing, I mean, while they were doing Watch Point, there were cattails in the frames. You're not going to be able to replicate that completely professional environment.
Yes.
Home.
Close the door to your bedroom. If you are being paid to stream this, to announce to 50,000 people, and you can't figure out a way to keep a cat out of your room, then you know what? You need a lot more work. Close your damn door.
What if it's a 1-bed apartment? A lot of these people have stuff like that. I understand that it's not as professional, but sometimes you really can't help it. And you really didn't think it was going to happen. And maybe this is the only setup where you can set up in a time. They only had a week. So maybe next week they won't have cats. Who knows? This is a week setup for everyone to work from home. So they're going to do whatever they can to get there in time. I'm not saying this should be a normal thing, but I will give them the leeway of they're working from home with a week notice. And they're going to try to get set up and everything working as fast as possible. And sure, the cat thing was fun, but whatever.
If you're saying that in a week you can't figure out, and this is not Nori, this is a Custis cat just walking on stream and stuff like that. If in a week you can't figure out how to not have your cat walk in front of your camera while you're broadcasting, that's not I only had a week to figure that out.
I think it is. I see it as they literally did it and they're like, oh snap, the cats, and or wherever they're setting up, they didn't think about the cat. It's a lot of things where they literally probably just went and gone and was like, okay, we're doing it now. Screw it, let's go. And maybe next week they won't have the cats everywhere. Maybe next week they will, because a lot of people actually like the cats being there. So like, there's a lot of things where, as much as it's not unprofessional, everything was done in less than a week. They had a whole thing set up a week prior that had to get canceled, and now they had to go again. It's like you've got to give them some leeway for some of this stuff. And it's sure, it's not as professional, but like every other esports has also had the same problems. You can look at everything.
Yep.
So
I'll give them a week before, like, if it happens again this week, then I will really have an issue with it.
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Either way, when it comes to the bans themselves, the blame is gonna go somewhere. If it's not on a person, it's on a cat. If it's not on the cat, it's based on the number of tickets that were involved in the pool, whatever at that point. But it was a different way to do it. Maybe they'll change it up on a week-to-week basis. Who knows? Because we are in unprecedented times at this point. But there's a lot of moving parts right now, and that includes additional teams relocating, as we did find out from the chief operating officer of Seoul Dynasty that the Dynasty are relocating back to South Korea. So basically, what this means is that the move guarantees that the Seoul Dynasty will remain undefeated for the next 2 weeks. Spoilers. And this follows, news after, some of the other Korean-based teams already relocating, that being the London Spitfire and the Vancouver Titans. So they're back both in Korea, and the Dynasty will be back in Korea, so they won't get to continue to face all of these NA teams. So it'll be interesting. Now you're going to have the Dynasty in that pool with the Chinese teams, with London, with Vancouver. And, based off of what we've seen out of the China Overwatch teams and the level of parity, we could have some pretty interesting games ahead with the Dynasty's involvement here.
These teams, these games could be huge. I think China just became the best region. For multiple reasons. Vancouver, Seoul, I think there's rumors of New York going there as well. So these are 3 powerhouse teams that are joining. London's also joining. It's going to be one of the biggest. I'm excited to see what happens. It's sad to see, like, I wanted to play Seoul again. Maybe my team Gladiators could like try to come back from the 3-0. Who knows? But it's one of those things where I'm excited to see what happens next with this region.
You can't come back from a 3-0. At that point, you've already lost.
I'm saying from the previous 3-0, yes.
I know what you meant.
I mean, this was expected. I think we kind of all figured they were going to get the hell out of Dodge, essentially. I was surprised that they weren't gone already this week, along with, Vancouver and London. Yeah, it made no sense. All these teams, the Canadian team went back to Seoul before the Seoul team went back to Seoul. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if New York does also join them. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if basically every team goes over there.
Would New York be able to travel?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a whole nother issue.
I don't know if they would be able to, given the fact that they're the epicenter right now.
Yeah. So who knows? But I mean, if I was any team, I'd hate to say this because, rah rah America, fuck yeah, type of mentality that we have here, for better or worse. We are not handling this well. And if you can get to a country that is handling it a little better, probably not the worst idea in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if that's where your family also is. So, yeah, not surprised.
It's also interesting because now we're going to get to see the crossover of some of the divisions as far as power level goes. Like previously we were going to be looking at the Dragons, Charge, Hunters, and Spark in like a vacuum of them playing themselves. So now we're going to get to see a little bit of crossover. Like if Seoul goes over to the once they get to South Korea, and if they play some of these other teams like that have won, like the Spark or the Hunters, if they play those kind of teams and they get smoked, what does that tell us about those West Coast teams that Seoul stomped on? I don't think that's going to happen. Personally, I think Seoul looks incredibly strong, and that this is going to give them a way to showcase how good they are across divisions. And like, as different teams start moving to South Korea, because I think that's definitely going to be a handful of teams that do that if they're able to. It's definitely going to help us in terms of power rankings and letting us know, like, we're not going to have some individual little bubbles that don't cross over, and we'll be like, well, say Seoul's the best team West Coast, but who's going to be the best team in Korea and China? So now we're going to have that crossover, and I'm pretty excited to see that. I look forward to see what they're going to do with the schedule. So I'm gonna go ahead and predict. I think Seoul's gonna stay strong even in that Korean division, but I definitely am excited to see a little bit of crossover, so we'll be able to really get a picture of how all of these teams are going to be looking together.
Right on, and I'm really curious to see whether or not that level of parity will continue between China and Korea. Once we start to see the Chinese teams face in either, London, Vancouver, or the Dynasty in this case. But, this past weekend we did get our first look at a lot of different teams out there, primarily the teams that are based in China. So that would be Shanghai, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, as well as Chengdu. And within the first week, we already saw that circle of parity taken center stage between the Chinese teams, where they were basically just trading wins. They'd lose to one team and then beat another, and then the cycle would just continue at that given point. Now, Anura, we entered this season with a lot of discussion about there being very distinct differentials in regards to the meta and approaches that teams were taking going into their scrimmages with what their team compositions were running. Do you feel like, based off of what we saw in week number 8, that kind of lived up to all of the hype that was kind of built behind it?
Are you talking about the Chinese teams specifically? I think it brought more confusion than hype. I feel like I didn't learn enough because every team just kind of played off each other. Mm-hmm. Charge looked strong against Spark, but Spark came back against Chengdu, and Chengdu 3-0'd Shanghai, and Shanghai looked great against Charge. There was a lot of stuff. Meta-wise, it looked completely different for a lot of those teams. Chengdu, still Chengdu. I feel like I underestimated them, but that's like what you do with Chengdu, so I'm not too mad about it. China, the meta's different, and I feel like when these new teams come in, they're gonna have to really learn how China does things, because they're fun. It's really fun, and sometimes it's a little iffy. You're like, maybe both of these teams are just playing terribly. But I want to see these teams like Vancouver come in, either wreck house with them or just lose out. So far, I feel like any team could win against anyone except maybe Shanghai. I think Shanghai still has the above on everyone else because they looked so good against Charge. I think Chengdu just had the meta. I mean, if you let Chengdu play ball, they're gonna make you play their game. It's just what Chengdu does. So I feel like China's kind of still a coin flip. You don't really know who's going to win, when they're going to win, how they're going to win. So I'm excited to see next week. Maybe we can flesh it out a little bit more.
Yeah, the Chinese scene was kind of this week was like, all right, you had 4 matches, you only had 4 teams play, and nobody won both games. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do you look at them and actually judge them? How and this was our first look. Mm-hmm. It's like after week 1, everyone's 1-1.
It's very even.
Fantastic. I'm gonna easily be able to judge this crap.
And the Dynasty are the best team in the league. Yes.
Yes.
Let's go.
So it was definitely interesting. Some good matches. I do agree. I do think Shanghai is probably the team to beat before Seoul gets there. once Seoul gets there. I think Seoul and Vancouver are the 2 teams to beat. But out of the 4 like actual Chinese teams that played this, I think Shanghai was the better of the 2 teams. But like Anura said, the Hunters with Ball, they basically were able to run what they wanted.
The real question is, are Chengdu still going to be able to split next week with Ball out of the rotation here?
Okay, so Chengdu this week did not play Ball as solid as they did last year. We've seen quite a bit amount of aiming coming out on Orisa. So he looked fine with it. Like, he definitely, Ball is his best hero. But I think that his Orisa is definitely something he's been practicing in the off season, because it looks pretty decent. While y'all think
how does one practice Orisa? Basically, it's stand there, shield.
It's practicing, more or less practicing with your team. You know what I'm saying? They've had quite a few weeks for team play going, and you also, Orisa's most thing that you practice the most is the halt, and getting the halt in the right spot and getting it to pull at the exact right time. If you pull a little too late, it might be too high for him. Like that like, Orisa isn't the highest skill tank by any means, but there's more to that halt. It's not as much of a bot as it would seem, like with the shield, and that is definitely brainless bot moves. But I think that the halt is like the key to being a good Orisa. Like, the difference between a really good Orisa player is how they utilize that halt with their other team's cooldowns. And you definitely seen Chengdu come in with the Orisa Sigma a little bit and pulling the halt and the rock now instead of the halt and the hook is the combo. And I think that after this weekend, y'all might think that Shanghai is the team to beat. I'm thinking that the Hunters are the team to beat. They took that Spark game right to the wire. Like, they could have been the ones to they could have beat the Spark. That was such a close game. Like, I thought that they for sure were going to have that locked. And I think that one of the things too we see with the Chinese teams, when they're running the dive variations, it's a lot more Genji. So far this year, a lot of the dive teams that we've seen was more with the Tracer Sombra or Sombra Doomfist, like a combination of those 3 heroes. And I think that those early morning games this past weekend was some of the most Genji I've seen in the Overwatch League, probably since season 1 for sure. Like, there's only been a few teams that tried to do it so far, but it was much, much more prevalent in those games.
Well,
So
they're practicing because they know Hoxel is coming. And then Hoxel's gonna carve all of them up and show them how it's really done there. But there was a lot of interesting stuff that happened over the weekends. I doubt anyone would have thought that the Shock would go 0-2 this past weekend, going up against both the LA Gladiators as well as the LA Valiants. Like, what world are we living in right now where the Shock all of a sudden look like the worst team based out of California?
Maybe they got cocky. I don't know. Like, Shock definitely, I was expecting them to be on fire coming in, just like picking up where they left off. But it kind of looks like Shock is not the most. I mean, they're definitely not the most dominant team in the league right now. So I'm curious if maybe they got a little too cocky and weren't really putting in the reps like they were to be that champion level team. But what we saw in the playoffs last year, they lost the game and it really fired them up. So losing 2 games in a row like they did, one of them being the Valiant, if they're going to get fired up, that's going to fire them up for sure. There's also the crowd factor. Like, Shock definitely is one of those teams that, now seeing how they play online, I think that they probably were feeding off that crowd energy at least a little bit, because they definitely were. They looked more sharp. Even this season when they were at the home stands, but even though they only played Dallas, it just this weekend, I don't know, maybe if the online play isn't the Shock strong point, but I'm curious to see if they're going to bounce back or if we're going to see we keep talking about Shock last year. You got to remember season 1, there was a selection of those players were still the same players and they weren't the dominant team. Right. So this could be a return to season 1 Shock, and that would be pretty interesting. I know, Anura, I know you're pretty stoked to see how the Gladiators showed up against the Shock. That was a heck of a game there, wasn't it?
No, the Gladiators killed it. I think we, for me, I'm going to talk about the Shock real quick because the Gladiators game, I think we just had I think our comps were crazy good against the Shock. And I think Shock wasn't ready for that. I think they thought they had the meta down. I know there's rumors of problems within their team. I know there's like a whole bunch of talk. I think during MVTV's contested, I'm pretty sure Vast talked about how first map they actually had 2 people that weren't supposed to be in. They put in the wrong people. Apparently, it's just like it's all going down.
They pulled a Houston.
They pulled a Houston. They did, exactly.
They lost.
Yeah, but so they said that they've played these teams before because previous weeks they didn't even know who they're gonna play, so they just had like random people scrimming against, and they're like we beat them in scrims, like both of these teams in scrims. They just don't know what's happening. I think both these teams found a new read on the meta and used it to their favor. I think Shock didn't have the best read on the meta. I think probably the meta changed like a few days before they came in. I still think this team will dominate. I think that showed through a lot of their a lot of those games or closer. Just even though they had random people on random stuff, I think Sinatra's already still solid. You can call Shock might be having some problems, but there's no way you can ever be like they're bad. I don't think you can call them bad. I think you can just be like this is unlucky or like something's going wrong before you just call their players bad or like it's something up. Maybe Hero Pools isn't the best for them. But Shock's kind of iffy right now. Hopefully next meta they can bring it back. I don't like seeing a dominant team lose that badly.
Well, you definitely can't deny like how much Valiant's DPS is really pushed them up a couple of levels. So I really want to see how far KSP and KSF specifically can really bolster that team as a whole and seeing how much they can carry them throughout the season because. The DPS difference in that particular series was almost night and day.
I will say this about the Shock. I do want to say they might be at this point overcoached. To the point where every single map they have a completely different lineup. So I think there's too much like, well, let's do this because this person's best on this paired with this person, best on this paired with this person. So you can't get that team synergy together when you have a different starting 6 every single map. You don't get that chemistry with people. Your tanks don't get chemistry. I mean, they were like, I think I saw 2 maps out of both their games where Violet and Moth both played. Like, I think they're just overthinking everything. And they just need to kind of dumb it down and be like, okay, we're going to go with these. Choyobin's going to be in there all the time. We're going to stick with Sinatra and Rascal and Striker. And we're going to stick with, you know what I mean? Like they should stick with set teams. So I think that's something that they could definitely do.
So what you're saying is they're pulling a Houston like they were doing the beginning of the season with Raucus and Rappel back and forth. We're starting to see a little bit of similarities here. Not settling down on a lineup, playing the wrong teams. Next thing we know, we're going to be saying Shock number 17. Like, they need to get it together. All jokes aside, though, I definitely still think that the Shock, I would still rate them top 10, probably almost for sure top 5 team still, even with the 2 losses. They've got a losing record, but just their reputation, they totally have the potential to come back on fire and just run it all back. So it's definitely not time to count the Shock out, but I got my eye on them because the Shock is not the team I expected to crumble this season. So if they have less favorable results, I would be extremely surprised, especially where they really didn't make too many changes. So I definitely did not expect them to lose both games this match. Like, I kind of thought it was up in the air how they were going to do against the Gladiators. Like, I thought that was a game that they could possibly lose, but I did not see them losing to the Valiant. I would have not predicted that. So yeah, maybe KSP really popped off in that game. So I kind of, Valiant hadn't really beat any high level teams yet, and now they did, and we know that DPS line who, the key at KSP and some of their one of the things too, Valiant, they didn't play Gig in that game. They had Dreamer in, and previously Dreamer kind of looked more like their wrecking ball specialist. Like, he didn't really seem like their main tank. Like, Gig had been pretty solid. So I'm actually kind of curious to know what the deal is up with that. Like, did they really just think that Dreamer was better in this hero pool, or was it is Gig sick, or was he unable to be part of those games for another reason? Like, it's hard to say, because I definitely did not expect him to be on the bench.
Yeah, I think the Valiant, they are trying to use everyone they can, and I think Dreamer just had the up on Orisa, maybe some some ball. I think they were trying to run some ball, but overall, I think Valiant looked great. I think we're going to talk about the Gladiators because I'm a Gladiators fan. I'm going to make you guys talk about Gladiators for that game. We're not going to talk about the other game. For that game, the meta they're running with the Mirror Doomfist was something that you've seen in maybe like Contenders China, where it's just like protect the Doomfist and let him pop off. If he gets a pick, you basically win. Mirror was feast or famine. I think this was a set play, probably by their coaches, because the coaching staff of Gladiators is next level. I don't think you can deny that. That I really enjoyed it, because a lot of people would see this as like a feeding. Like, I don't feel like Mirror would have worked in any other roster unless they literally just gave him all these resources, let him go in, protected him, and then let him come out with a pick or two. I thought it was super interesting. I found it super entertaining. Of course, I was loving that game before Valiant did the same thing like the next day or whatever. But it was something that I never thought that it would actually work in Overwatch League. I've seen him do it multiple times on a stream where he's like, Zarya bubble me, give me nano, give me everything, basically. Throw it all on me. And Gladiators made it work in the Overwatch League, and I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, I do want to keep an eye on how the Valiant interfere in the long term, knowing that they no longer have Reprise or Stoop on that coaching staff, as Hedonor and I had noted on last week's episode of HND. So short term, might not really see too many differentials in regards to like team performances or expectations, but long run we could see a little bit of fall off on that front, knowing that it essentially is only Peck in 10 on that crew at this given point in time. But I have to say, like, I was really happy, at least when with online play, that we had a higher a better chance of seeing ons on the hit scan DPS for the shock, and we did see more of that. It wasn't just in like an exhibition on the PTR or anything. We actually got to see him in league play, so that was a nice surprise. But really, we need to talk about the Dynasty, who basically came in and smoked the LA teams. There was a lot of hype behind the Dynasty with their acquisitions, picking up pieces from that London Spitfire roster. We all didn't really know, like, if that meant that they were going to be London Spitfire 2.0, or if they were going to be more like Dynasty 1.0, where they came into the league with a bunch of hype, underperformed, and then didn't go anywhere until the next season. And Ed, you and I were discussing like, well, who's gonna be the tank duo? There's a lot of discussion about who's gonna start over Gesture and Marvel. Turns out they both played because they were running Orisa Sigma. Didn't get to see Michelle, so we didn't really see any sort of like diva on that side. But there really wasn't a lot of diva throughout the entirety of the weekend anyway. And if you want to talk about, good tank synergy and halt synergies, the accretion halt combinations from Gesture and Marvel were absolutely amazing. And Profits came in and delivered, even at one point, getting more final blows in. The entirety of the LA Valiant, which was a pretty good, kind of like a low blow in regards to like the stats-based stuff that was announced in that regard. But I'd say, like, I wasn't sure how I felt about the Dynasty's chances against the Gladiators, just because the Gladiators are such like an interesting team dynamic. But to see them coming in, going 2-0, and just looking the way that they did, I was very impressed. And I'm really hoping that the Profits duo is going to be able to continue to perform at that sort of level as we kind of expected. But it was just interesting to see Profit on things that we just normally don't get to see from him as well. So it was a pleasant surprise in that regard as well.
Yeah, it was nice to see that. I think the Soul Dynasty lived up to what we kind of all like had expected. I think everyone kind of expected that they would be dominant. And they did. Yeah, they just did that. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They came in and just dominated all week. When you go 3-0, 3-0, there's not much you can say bad about the.
Yeah, Seoul looked hot this weekend. They definitely looked like one of the teams to beat in the entire league, for real. Like, especially going in on Sunday, because we just saw the Gladiators take out the Shock, and then we see Seoul just work the Gladiators over. Like, I was really impressed. Like, though, that was like the preseason conversation is Seoul getting the good parts of London or maybe not? But in reality, all of those London players are all looking better this season than they did last season. Furies with the fusion, they're looking good. I know Gladiator got whooped up on by Seoul, but Berdering's been looking solid, especially against the Shock. Like he played a good game. Like he wasn't the carry that Mirror was, but he was solid. So yeah, seeing Seoul, and then they beat both the teams that beat the Shock. So Seoul is right now in my opinion, one of the strongest teams in the league. Like I definitely thought preseason they were coming in strong, but I wasn't super confident with it. But now seeing how they come out like this, I can't wait to see more Seoul games, because the Prophet and Fitz, that's going to be a hard DPS line to beat. But then they also back it up with super strong tanks, because their choices for to run Gesture and Marvel, like I almost think they looked and said, what are our best players and what comps do we play to play our best players the best they can be? And I think that's what I really, really want to see moving forward from the Overwatch League, is like, how are our players the best, instead of what's the best meta? How do we shove our players in to make that work? Like Seoul it was like just immaculate Overwatch they played this weekend. So I'm beyond excited to see what they're able to accomplish this season. Or was it just the fluke these two games? They come in just and had the right hero pools and had the right practice. But I really don't think that's the case. I think that this Seoul team is going to be the strongest year for Seoul so far.
Before we move on, let's just talk about the support line, because it's something that we really haven't talked about much.
Mm-hmm.
This Toby Bedosin support line dismantled the Gladiators, dismantled Mirror, to say specifically, where Mirror was dominating Shock. Toby would always have the immortality field to save a player. Bedosin was just getting frags on Zen. And they always had Fitz to back it up, and he'd always kill Mirror. Like, it was like literally instant. They had Gladiators red, and you really got to bring it to their support line, which I thought was going to be pretty weak. I didn't know how well Bedosin was going to look this season, and I really I still have my ifs, ands, or buts about Toby, but he really came out strong these 2 games. It's something that not a lot of people are talking about. Gesture, Marvel, they looked great on their positions. It was something that all 3 positions, like DPS, tank, support, just looks solid for Soul. And if they can keep that up, no matter the meta, they will continue to win games like they have been.
I'm just looking forward to that Vancouver Seoul showdown. Hopefully, we'll get it sooner rather than later, since they both are 2-0 going into their next games. But looking ahead, we have Week 9 coming up, and again, we got looks like 5 matches each day, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 6 at the most. But we do have Chinese Overwatch League continuing, and we're not going to break down every game, especially with how many games we have been seeing. And thankfully, we're not going to run into a situation now where the schedule is going to change in between when we record and when the games actually happen. Fingers crossed.
Are you willing to bet on that?
Not really.
No.
Because, but at least the teams that were relocating, Ed, aren't listed on here. So, like,
not all the teams that
cool.
were relocating last week, ended up playing.
I know that was unfortunate.
I still don't get why the Fuel and Soul didn't play.
Who knows?
Like, because
Soul
Soul
have different opponents.
Probably Ping. I guess Ping.
Soul was in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they played teams already.
I don't know. I don't think we'll ever get the answer to that.
Yeah, it probably was just the way they shuffled the schedule. They probably, with some of the teams that decided that they couldn't play, there was going to be a couple other teams that get left out. So I bet they just went for teams that have already played a few games this season.
Or they knew Dynasty were going to move this week, so then they just moved Dallas to play 2 games this week. But anyway, so looking at the lineup here, we have on Saturday, we kick off at 1 a.m. Pacific time, again, with the Chinese games. We have the Dragons going up against the Spark, followed by Hunters versus Charge. Then the U.S. games start at 1 p.m. Pacific time. We got Toronto Defiant versus the Washington Justice, LA Gladiators versus the Dallas Fuel, and a rematch between the Valiant and the Shock. So that's going to be interesting. Back-to-back weeks, Valiant versus the Shock, and, I don't know if the Valiant will be able to win back-to-back in this regard. Like, how are you guys feeling about the Valiant now, knowing that they've already kind of, I don't want to say surpassed the Shock at this point, but they've already pulled off that upset over them. Do you feel like the Valiant have gotten in the Shock's heads at this point?
Okay, so if the Shock win this game, it's 3-0. If Valiant, I think Valiant has a chance. Before I seen this past weekend's games, I would have been like, oh, that's not even a game to watch. But now this is one of my most anticipated games for Saturday because I want to see how that rolls out. I kind of got a feeling the Shock are going to come back strong like they did in the playoffs after they lost to Atlanta and then come back and just didn't lose a map. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Shock come back and just be absolutely monsters. But they could be boomed. Like those 2 losses that could have got in their head. So it's definitely, that's one to watch because that's going to be pretty telling about the Shock and how strong their mental game is going to be if they're going to be able to come back and be able to face that challenge that the Valiant's going to present.
Yeah, I do want to note in this case for the Shock, it is their only game of the week. Valiant do also play on Sunday, in also the late game in that case against Dallas. So, Shock can basically all in on what they're going to be doing against the Valiant, and Valiant can't necessarily do the same there.
I think that the DPS lineup alone of not having KSP on a McCree kind of thing would also, it brings it a lot down for me. I think Shock, if my prediction of a dive meta I don't know if it's going to happen, where they play the Doomfist Sombra that Houston Outlaws showed weeks prior. If that happens, I have Shock winning. I don't see a way that if they don't put Sinatra on Doomfist and they don't have like anyone who can play Sombra on Sombra, I see Shock winning. But I think Valiant has a chance to show off something that they haven't been able to show this whole season, which is their other DPS. Shax can actually play really good Sombra. So if they can bring him in, and he's just he's KSB level of McCree that he is on Sombra, like if they can even that out, I can see it like coming closer. But for me, I think Shock really boomed last week, and I if they don't rebound now, I just don't believe them anymore. I don't know what to say. I think Shock has this.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I think Shock are just gonna come back and wreck face on this one. I think they're gonna get like a kind of a set like lineup, not rotate every single map. They get Moth back on Lucio. We could definitely see a Doomfist. I mean, if they do go dive, you run Doomfist Tracer, get Striker on Tracer, Sinatra on Doomfist, and Choi on Diva, and whoever is the better Winston, or whoever's the better Winston. So yeah, it could definitely be something where I see them just come back and 3-0 clap. It's the best matchup of the week, in my opinion, though. Because it has something coming back. I'm not taking into account all the 1-1 Chinese teams, because those are just 4 rematches essentially. Like I know on Saturday those are new ones, but they're all so close together. After this week, I think we'll be in the same boat.
Everyone's gonna be 2-2.
Everyone's gonna probably be 2-2. We might have a 3-1 and a 1-3, but they're all gonna be in the same boat. But I think this is probably the most interesting matchup we have of the week.
Another interesting matchup Saturday, maybe not as much for skill wise, but in terms of narrative. You've got the Gladiators versus Dallas, so you get to see how Decay is going to come up against his former team, as well as OGE going against his former team. While I definitely think that's Gladiators is for sure, I think that they're definitely the favorite in that game. It's just that's something as the league goes on, I like to watch how players play against their former teams. Just that's always something kind of interesting to me. And I definitely am curious because Decay has been like the brightest point of Dallas by far. So pretty much the way I think about it is any wins Dallas can get are going to be Decay carrying them on his back. So to see him coming up against his former team, even though it's a very different team than when he was on it, it's still there's a little bit of storyline going on there to look out for.
Yeah, and speaking of the charge really quick, it was actually Neptuno getting the nod on main support over Chara this past weekend, so definitely could be a sign of what to expect from them moving forward. And I really hope that we just continue to see that circle of parity continue, and just have everyone just keep split in this case. But we have Toronto, Washington this week, which on paper just does not sound like a good matchup. Primarily because the teams are both kind of struggling, and Justice have definitely, I felt like, been the team who hasn't lived up to their expectations when you compare them to, honestly, the rest of the field. The Justice had that honeymoon phase, as I always claimed, for like the stage 4. They looked really good. Hasn't really quite hit that same note going into this current season. And honestly, Toronto had a gimme win against Boston this past weekend. They're not going to have that same thing this weekend. And honestly, this is a must-win in both cases. I don't think both of these teams are in a situation where this could be like a rebound sort of week for them, but both of them are really desperate to get in the win column. And with the way that Washington has looked, I feel like they are in a more desperate situation between the two teams here.
Yeah, both those teams are 2-4, and those are both teams that I expected to play better this year than they have. With this hero pool, though, we might be, this might be the time to really unlock Corey. Because I definitely think that while he's been good on McCree, he just hasn't shown the McCree skills like he did when he was on the Widow or the Hanzo. And I think that those definitely are going to be some areas for them to be strong with. The other thing is, a lot of people have criticized Stratus about being a May 1 trick. So with May being banned, it's kind of curious what he's going to do. While I don't really think you would want to call Stratus a May 1 trick, but it's definitely one of his strongest heroes. We've seen him also put up decent performances on Doom and also to play all right with Sombra. So I'm looking at Stratus to see what he's going to do, because the majority of this season he's been on the May because it hasn't got banned yet. So now I'm going to see what kind of strategy they're going to move into going in with that game.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with a hard pass on this game. just a straight up hard pass on this game. I have zero interest in this game because I don't think the Toronto Defiant are really any good. They're Dallas Field 2.0, and the Justice. I don't agree with that. They haven't lived up to expectations. It's a simple fact that they had one good stage last year that people have expectations for them. But then they seem to forget that before that, you couldn't pay the other team to let them win. Like, they were real bad. So one good stage does not mean, oh my God, they're all of a sudden this amazing team. They're not. Like, they were always going to be middle of the road or worse.
It's the Florida syndrome.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a battle of two non-playoff teams or borderline playoff teams at this point that just doesn't intrigue.
We're gonna have to see something good from Toronto for me to start believing in them again. This is the game you want. Last game, I think they played. Was it Boston last week?
Yeah, it was Boston.
It was Boston last week, which like they're expected to win. This is a team that they need to start racking up these wins. They're in the Atlantic Division. They have the easier teams. They need to start racking up these wins to really show that they can at least like be where we thought they were after the first game of this season when they looked really good against Paris Eternal. Personally, I don't see Washington winning this for the sole reason of the Stratus May is gone, and I don't know where they're going to turn. Are they going to turn to Tuba? I don't know what they're going to do on their DPS line. It's just like there's too many question marks for me to not go for Toronto. With that being said, this is like the weakest match this week for sure. Bottom line, this is this week's Toilet Bowl. It's gonna be. I don't think anyone's winning by watching this one, unless it's like either like a really dominant 3-0 where one team shows up good, or a Mat 5 where it's like two really just like so bad it's good kind of deal. But we'll have to see later.
It's the early dinner game. That's what the Toronto Washington is the time to take dinner break in that day of Overwatch. But we got some more matches coming up Sunday.
Yeah, we do. So we kick off at 1 a.m. Pacific time between Hunters and the Dragons, followed by Charge versus Spark. Then for the NA side at 1 p.m. Pacific time, we got Outlaws versus the Eternal, Fusion versus the Justice, and then we finish the weekend with Fuel versus the Valiant. I'll be honest, I mean, looking at these, I might skip the majority of Sunday. I'm probably more invested in Hunters versus the Dragons than anything. But I don't know, like these other ones don't really stand out to me all that much.
I'm gonna say one game. The Houston Outlaws versus Paris Eternal is actually really if
Me too,
if
man.
Houston can show up, Paris, because Houston beat Paris like the last time they faced. This could be a really good like comeback game. With that being said, like also what Houston played looks like it might be viable with the Doomfist Sombra that they played, and they looked really dominant. That's the game I'm actually like really looking forward to. But I also could see this going like one way or the other. It's the 50-50 game that shouldn't be 50-50 to me. I really think Paris is the better team, but I think Houston might still have the advantage with, especially with the hero pools that are out.
Yeah, if Houston wins this game, then it's not just luck that they beat Paris 2 weeks ago and they went 2-0 that week. Last weekend they played. Houston's actually the last game they played was against Paris, so it's just a repeat. But I am. If this game happened last week, I would be like, oh man, Houston's boned. Paris is gonna whoop them. But this week they've got the monkey, and anytime they're going to be able to keep Muma off that Reinhardt, they definitely have a better chance to win. Like Muma is pretty good with Orisa. He's pretty good with ball, and he's a legit Winston. Like I think he kind of earned his stripes in Overwatch and got hit to the Overwatch League level playing Winston. So hopefully they decide to utilize that, and we get to see Houston come out with that, that comp that they kind of took the league by storm with a couple weeks ago, playing the Sombra and the Doomfist with the Winston. And this Paris game is, as a Houston fan, is huge, because if they can compete with Paris, then they can compete with the top teams. Like they definitely had that rocky start at the beginning of this year, but them winning against Paris once, if they do it twice, Paris is a team that the same weekend that Houston beat them, they won against Philly. So I think that Houston, while they looked super weak starting out, that might have just been a little bit of issues with their strategies, and as that all gets ironed out, like their players are legitimately talented and able to put up a fight against elite teams. Because I think right now you definitely Paris a top 10 team, like without a doubt they're top 10. So them being able to prove they can consistently play at that level is just really good for a Houston fan. It looks like Philly's gonna probably have a pretty easy game where they only this week, and then LA Valiant, they're rematching against the Dallas Fuel. So yeah, those Sunday games, I definitely am in agreement with both of y'all that the Hunters Dragons and then the Houston Paris games are my top two for the Sunday.
All right, so
What Muma have you been watching?
What are you talking about?
He only looks good on
is on
Winston.
point. He looks good on Winston, and he's got a good ball.
Well, here's the thing. I only have one question. So now that we are online only, right? So we got to see Ons this past weekend. Is there a shot we see Chipsa? Could it actually happen?
Anything could happen.
It needs to happen. I'm tired of waiting. I just want to see it happen. I want to see it happen on stage, and they didn't
We'll
do
see
it.
Hisu before Chipsa, I think. Hisu's 18 now.
Oh,
is?
Honestly, I completely forgot about
Okay.
that.
Yeah, he's 18. He turned 18 like 2 weeks ago, or some crap like that. So I think we see Hisu this week.
It was
Because
March 25th.
yeah. So I say we
Okay.
see him paired with Carpe over anything.
I like it.
And if they want to test out some new strategies, Washington's not the worst team to test them out against. So that's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah,
One
the
other
rest of these
thing-
games are bad.
They're not
I don't know.
bad, but they're not
Great.
great. It's just
Well,
like they needed to happen. They needed to happen.
I mean, outside Philadelphia, are there really, really, truly any? Like, I guess you could maybe make the Gladiators. All the best teams are over in China or sold now.
Right. I think it'd be interesting to see Valiant play against Dallas again because I think Valiant is kind of making a case for actually being a playoff contender. We will see in this next few games when they play against Shock again and then Dallas. If they can roll Dallas again, they can at least look competitive against Shock. I think they are looking to be one of the better teams, which is actually surprising. So that's one team I am looking out for. I'm gonna watch a Dallas versus Valiant game no matter which way they go, just because I'm interested in both those teams. I don't care which way it goes though.
Yeah, as we move forward online and start seeing more of these teams debut online, it's going to be very interesting to like this past weekend. We didn't really see any teams that were, with the exception of maybe the Valiant, any teams that were like not that good in homestands and then like significantly better online. And that comparison's interesting to me because I know stage fright is a real thing that some there's bound to be, the league's so big, there's bound to be some players that were dealing with stage fright, and this online is going to be the perfect scenario for them to flourish. And I'm just I want to have my eye out this week to see if we have any of those players that I would like to mark as like maybe they weren't as good in the homestands, but now without the stage, they're getting to be better. So I've definitely got my eye out for that sort of player with all of these games going on.
All right, so I think that basically covers it. So we got 10 matches this weekend, 10, I believe, next weekend as well. Hopefully they won't wait too long in regards to announcing additional week schedules whenever they are doing the batches, because I know they basically announced them, it was Tuesday this week when we got like the current week schedule.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll get it a little bit earlier so we can actually maintain our podcast schedule. If not, then, maybe we'll just end up doing the same thing again that following week. For week, that would be 11 at that point. But we'll keep an eye on that. We'll let you guys know if we are going to continue to go that route, should they keep on, like, the same sort of pace that they have been going on in regards to the overall updates for the Overwatch League schedule. But with that being said, we are going to close things out. And this is going to be a little bit weird because, like, obviously we're doing a contact info for 2 different shows, most of which are the same. So hopefully it won't be too bad. So if you guys want to help us out, the best thing to do, bar none, is to head over to iTunes, leave us and write us a review. Let us know how we're doing, both on Heroes Never Die, on Overwatch League Network, heck, all of our network shows, even our Hearthstone show, that technically isn't under the network, but, you can search Tavern Tales, leave us a review, all that good stuff. But we're always looking for ways to improve the show for all of you listeners at home. If you're looking for additional content to consume, what better way than by checking out Overwatch Recall, which is our podcast directory for all things Overwatch. We can find episodic listings on our website as well as on our Twitter every Sunday or Monday at OW Recall. And on like the podcast side, I did add a vast new podcast, both the one that he is doing an interview series for with Hero Select, as well as the joint effort between Avast and Jane, which is Contested. So both of those started here. I think it was like both within the last month for both shows there. So that's the latest updates on that side of things. And you could also find myself guesting on the March episode of Realm of Maintenance. And I know Ro also interviewed a good friend of mine, Coltrane, as well as Shoe Boots from Azeroth Public Radio. So I was on the RNG segment this week. Go check that out. But with that being said, Nora, why don't you go ahead and let all of our listeners know how they can help support our show?
If you'd like to show some additional support to our network of Overwatch shows, consider pledging via Patreon. Tiers start at just $1 a month. More information can be found at https://www.patreon.com/OWL network. You too can join the likes of our Master and Above patrons, Daniel, Owl, Kasha, Agent Light, and 044 in helping our network grow.
Yep, and every little bit does help in that case as well. So now for the interesting part, Booger, you'll read what you normally read for our contact info, for OWLN, but like Ed will read the HND stuff on that side, I guess. I don't know what other way to do it.
All right. I'm just gonna read what has E next to my name on it.
That's fine. We can do it that
All
way
right.
too.
So you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com or at contact@owlnshow.com. We are both have Twitters at HNDoverwatch and at OWLN Show. We do have a website where you can come check everything out at www.owlnshow.com. And we do have a YouTube channel at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. Take it away, Booger.
And then our Discord, we've got Discord is discord.me/OWLN show. We are on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show. And we are a Twitch affiliate, so you can help support the network by subscribing to the channel and earn our network emoticons. The podcast network streams regularly. You got Overwatch League Network, which airs Mondays at 7 p.m. You got Overwatch League by the Numbers, which airs Tuesdays at 6 p.m., which is back next week. And then we have Heroes Never Die, the Overwatch show that airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And if you want to contact the host, you can find me on Twitter at BoogerBrainz, BOOGERBRAINZZ with 2 Z's. And also over in the Discord, because being under quarantine means a lot of gaming, and I'll be going to the Discord to find some duos for Overwatch all the time. How can the listeners contact y'all?
Erner, why don't you go ahead and start this one? We'll just go alphabetical.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Neuro. I'm posting things now. It's not good, but I'll figure it out. How can I contact y'all?
You can contact me over at on Twitter at Ednar Overwatch or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ednar. Totem, where can they find you at?
Well, you can also find me on Twitter at TotemlyDrunkCTR. And then when I'm streaming on Twitch, it is at twitch.tv/TotemlyDrunk. So again, guys, I do want to thank you for joining us on this Swapcast for both Heroes Never Die and Overwatch League Network. We actually had our giveaway drawn last night for the HND 200, and it was actually Thorn Rain that came out with the draw on that, so I'll be contacting him shortly with his $50 Battle.net gift card, as well as seeing what he wants for his Overwatch League jersey. Hopefully there aren't too many issues with shipping. I don't know. I haven't really ordered anything off of Fanatics during the pandemic, but we'll see what's going on in that case. I'll contact him in just a matter of minutes after we wrap up here. So congrats, Thorn Rain, in that regard. But we hope to see you guys online, hopefully in-game. And if not, we'll see you guys back next week for our next episodes on the Podcast Network. You guys take care and have a good night.
Peace.
Later.